Welcome to Travel Market Life, your companion for industry insights and professional business development. Travel Market Life. Join us by webcast, video or podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Travel Monthly Review Show, February 2024 edition. You are now part of an award-recognised podcast as Travel Market Life becomes a finalist in the European Content Awards 2024. To follow us closely, subscribe to our newsletter on www.travelmarket.life or join our LinkedIn page. We've just put ourselves forward for the International Hospitality Institute Awards for the podcast category. So we welcome any nominations from you and reviews and ratings of the show on your podcast channel. Right, enough for my shameless publicity. Back to the review show, where we look at some industry pressing issues and the landscape in front of us, getting insider knowledge from our expert panel, Claire Steiner, Will Plummer, and James Clark. In this episode, we'll be looking at industry news of the last month, what's RyanAir's change of strategy, our feature discussion is on the business travel, and we'll hear from Chief Executive of the Business Travel Association. Then, industry developments and consumer trends. Before, in this fast-paced podcast, we test our panelists' knowledge in the quick quiz. Will won last month. Has he got his A game today? I'm your host, Ryan Haynes. Let's get on with the show.
Travel Market Life.
Hello, Will. Thanks for coming back to us. How are things going over your side?
Yeah, manic start to the year, but all really positive. You know, lots of great things happening, I think, across the industry. And obviously, we're going to touch on some of the stories today. But yeah, we're flat out busy, loving it. Great to see everyone traveling again and, you know, everything working well.
Excellent, wonderful, fantastic. Claire Steiner, you're here back with us as well. And you've been busy.
I have indeed, yes. Not as busy, I think, as the bookings have been in January, which has been fantastic to see. And I have to say, all of my clients are buzzing, actually. And I think this is hopefully a really great sign for this year, for 2024. Yeah, it's been busy in my world, in HR. Lots going on in the employment law world that I need to kind of get my head around. And also doing some of my Future You events at universities around the country. So yeah, busy for me as well. And what traditionally actually is quieter because all my clients are busy selling holidays. So
that's good. I mean, you were in Sheffield as well, weren't you, for a Future You event? And you heard something quite interesting about the nudge theory.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. So we were very lucky with some really good speakers at the event, and the nudge theory is all around how you can influence behaviors and consumer behaviors in this case to change habits, and that's in a corporate sense. So this actually was the Compass Group, and a really interesting presentation on how they have, using the nudge theory without preaching, helped change their consumers to a more healthier lifestyle, which has obvious benefits anyway. But for them, one of the biggest benefits they've seen is a massive reduction in their food waste. And as we know, the catering industry, that side of it, is a huge contributor to the carbon issues, much bigger than aviation. So yeah, it was really, really good, really interesting. And that was just something I hadn't heard and something I'm now very much looking into. So the nudge theory. Have a look at it.
Read it up, find out about it. Now over to James Clark, who's just dragged himself in from another awards ceremony.
Another week, another awards.
Where were you? Where were you and how did it go?
Well, hi, Ryan. Yeah, last night I was at the Carnival Cruise Awards at the beautiful HAC building in London, so the Artillery House. It was a wonderful event. Lots of success to be appreciated, from everything from recognising the top cruise agents all the way through to the rising stars of the industry. So a wonderful evening, and a huge thanks to Carnival for putting on a very, very nice evening.
Excellent. And now, by the way, this is recorded and then it's sent out a week later. But, you know, you're going to be going to a red carpet event as well.
I am. Do you know, I'm going to start getting a reputation on this podcast.
You've already got
another
one.
Week, another week, another event. And, you know, one of the joys of working with TravelZoo is some of our partnerships. And we do across the year, we do a couple of media partnerships with film productions, and we're very fortunate to be lined up with another wonderful British film. It's featuring the Oscar-winning, I believe, Olivia Colman, and she's going to be featured in a film called Wicked Little Lies, which is a true story based upon some wicked pen letters which were written in a village in the UK. And yes, should we say, it's a little bit of a cheeky comedy. And yeah, Tuesday night, I'll be going to the premiere of that. So spending some time with all the celebs.
He's going to become an A-list. He's not going to want to be part of this show before too long, and he will, eh?
Yeah, sounds about right. It just needs to get his walk right.
No, look, yesterday I was changing light bulbs in my office, all right? So there's highs and lows.
Yeah.
Right, coming up next, the industry news.
Travel Market Life.
Okay, so we've been looking at some of the industry news from the last month, and this is where we get a chance to pick a few stories that really have grabbed our attention and is potentially, having an impact on the actual industry. Obviously, data is always a big thing, right? We always like to see what trend data is coming out and what people are saying. Now, Deloitte Consumer Tracker has shared that consumers are cutting spend, but not necessarily within travel. So consumers intend to spend less across 9 out of 11 leisure categories in the Q1 of 2024, except for long and short holidays category. So that's obviously great for the industry. But what do you think we need to be mindful of as an industry when consumers are actually cutting back so much in other areas?
Look, I think it's really promising for the industry. It's fantastic to see, especially after sort of the hardship of the last few years. I do, and I'm a cynic. I know I'm the cynic on the panel, but I do urge a bit of caution. Looking at the year ahead, with elections here, elections in the US, with events that are happening around the world, trouble in the Middle East, in the Ukraine, obviously. Will it last forever? I do think, make the hay while the sun is shining. Fantastic. But I would just urge caution. And one of the things we harp on about in terms of financial protection and structuring a business is actually planning for a downturn, making sure your business is in a healthy position for the long term so it can survive that downturn. Absolutely, this is a time to profit and to do well and to support your customers. Serve your customers well, because repeat customers are the easiest customers to win and they will come back to you. But just don't get too carried away. Make sure you're building the foundations, putting a structure in place to really make sure your business is sustainable.
I mean, so one of the interesting parts about the Deloitte Consumer Tracker was the fact that more people are perhaps looking towards all-inclusive trips. So that is still reining in their spending, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense, exactly to that point. So I think you're seeing a slight shift in terms of trends and how they are spending their money, to your point. And look, it's fantastic. I don't want to be doom and gloom. This is a real positive for the industry, but just make sure that you're putting something sustainable together for your own business.
I agree with what Will's saying. We have to be cautious this year. There's lots of big events that can very quickly, on the flick of a coin, change the direction of the industry. But right now, January has been a fantastic month for so many operators. February is continuing in that vein. We want to ensure in this marketplace that our customers and members alike are all getting exactly what they're looking for and they feel protected in what they're booking. But this kind of need for travel is not going away. People are booking not just one holiday, it's multiple holidays. So if we look back over periods in the past where we have been in slightly stickier economic situations, or there's been volatility in the market, volatility, should I say, in the market, pardon me. What you will see is that the downturn has actually been a lot stickier. This downturn hasn't been very sticky. In fact, because of the events of the last few years, it seems that it's back, and it's back with quite a form of an aggression. My parents got back from a cruise on Saturday. I saw them a few days later, and the first thing they said to me is, right, where are we off to next? James, we were thinking of doing Alaska. Do you think you could help us? Like, that is the mindset of particularly the older generation in the UK. And I've been at obviously 2 destination events now, and generally every person who I'm speaking to over the age of 55 has more than at least 2 or 3 holidays booked, or are looking to go on at least 2 or 3 holidays this year. And that doesn't seem to be slowing down.
I mean, it's an interesting time, and you can check out our other monthly podcast, the hospitality version, that has just come out. And we were looking at sort of rates and patterns of booking. And a couple of conversations I've had within hospitality, particularly obviously for UK operators, is that they're seeing the booking window reduce slightly, but they're also seeing an increase in a number of refundable or bookings that can be cancelled rather than the non-refundable ones. So people are certainly being more cautious. They're wanting much more flexibility in some of their bookings, particularly for their staycations within our domestic market. So it will be interesting, certainly to see how things play out from these travels abroad, because obviously it was something that was missing, particularly for a couple of years. Over to a holiday operator here. So Holiday Extras has launched a new AI tool after it reveals 55% of travellers don't read insurance documentation properly. Over half, 55% said they did not read it properly. Any of us guilty of doing that?
Yes.
All three raise their hands. It's so confusing and complex half the time, and when you open the T's and C's, doesn't it feel like it just goes on forever? When we get to the end, and you just realize that when you get to the end, you wish you hadn't even read it in the first place, because you realize it doesn't actually cover you for anything.
No. Ryan, do you think we should challenge Will on that, bearing in mind this is his area of expertise? Why are the terms and conditions so long and convoluted, Will?
And let's just talk about the fine print as well, please. But yeah.
And why does the font have to be so small, Will?
Yes.
Because no one wants to read 30 pages, honestly.
So make it look like 5.
Right, so make it exactly fit it all into one size 2 font, and it's much more aesthetically pleasing. Look, I think it is a really serious point. And one of the things I always push for and talk about in terms of terms and conditions is transparency. The reason it's so long-winded is, to be quite honest, that lawyers get involved and they want to cover off every single point. But whether it be terms and conditions, whether it be insurance policies, I think the companies that do best on it are the ones that actually highlight some of the key points around it. Actually be honest with the customer, tell them what's going on, and that's what we try and do. I'm sure some customers might think differently, but we want to be clear about what's going to pay out, what's not going to pay out, where cancellation kicks in. You talked about non-refundable terms a minute ago from refundable terms in terms of what's coming in trend now. Let's spell it out for people. Let's make it really simple. The small font, long document is not going to go away. The lawyers of the world are just not going to allow that to happen, because insurers want to be covered. Lawyers want to protect, the travel companies themselves. But let's put headlines in terms of the key points around it. I am guilty of not reading documentation. I'm a little bit blasé about it, but if you don't want to get caught out, you should, and that's the truth of the matter. And I think, Holiday Extras should be rewarded for trying to use technology to make it simpler. I mean, that's what the likes of AI can be used for, and I think it's a great initiative.
I have to agree with you, Will. Actually, what I'd also say is that I think the problem is a lot of people, and I put my hand up quite rightly so, but that's until something goes wrong. And then when something goes wrong, suddenly you're really aware. And so, and luckily for me, it wasn't a huge thing that went wrong. But now I am absolutely religious in making sure that any insurance I have, I'm covered to what I need it to be covered to. And I think that's the sad thing. And one thing I've also found out over the years, working with, in particular, sort of tour operators, travel companies that sell insurance as a part of the package, that a lot of, sounds terrible, and this I'm going back 20 years when I first saw this happen, and it's not so bad now. A lot of the sort of the younger people that tend to be at the front line they have that kind of bravado, and they don't see necessarily that the sort of the needs for insurance in themselves and standing. So I think there's a massive requirement, and it has got a lot better, of why travel companies need to train their staff in how to sell insurance properly, and getting them to understand what that means for the customer, and the customer therefore has more faith in that travel company as well. So I know you can go out and buy it separately, but actually for me, we need to do more around getting the companies that are selling it, as I said, as an extra, to really understand the benefits and what it means.
And from all my time, both being as a tour operator and then being involved with APTA and even in my role now, one of the other things which I'm sure Will would agree is cheapest is not always the best. And unfortunately, in a price-driven market, consumers fall for the trick of, well, that must be fine because it's cheap, it's the cheapest on the market, where something like insurance is the complete polar opposite. You should be looking for your inclusions, looking which benefits and what extras are covered off and don't come with extra charges. And that is the role of, if it's a sales agent selling insurance, or the role of the salesperson in a retail shop, or it's the education point of the consumer. So if they're on a meta site, that they know what they're looking for. Because one thing I've ever been very, very clear with, which is for the insurance, cheapest is not the best.
Yeah, look, I think it's a challenge across any insurance. It's especially a challenge when the operator themselves is selling it or referring it, because that's an ancillary revenue. And, it's not necessarily their job to go out and find the best insurance for every single person in the world, because it just varies by, what you actually need, what your age bracket is. I find it quite interesting looking at how I view house insurance or pet insurance, and how I want specific things in those. I want to look at what the excess is, whereas travel insurance, I think I still get it with my bank. I need to double check actually for this year, but I seem to care less about that in terms of those bits. But if you're going on a longer trip, especially a high value trip, especially if there isn't as accessible medical cover as you might want or might be used to, you really have to do your research on this. And it's down to the individual on this. It's not down to the company that is selling you a holiday to actually do that, because different people's circumstances affect the price of insurance and affect what you actually need. So do your homework and do have a bit more care than I seem to.
Yeah, I mean, my parents have just returned from a bit of a mini world trip, and what they just said to me recently is that they think their travel insurance was null and void because they just discovered that their insurance only covered them for a one destination trip. And they never understood or never knew, it's that awareness or understanding that just because you have travel insurance doesn't mean that you can hop, skip around the world and it actually covers you. But then I also look at sort of how do you claim? So my pet insurance, for example, I purchased it all online. It was very quick, very fast. And if you want to claim, you've got to go to their website. You've got to download a piece of paper. You've got to print it out. You've got to fill it in. You've got to send it, go to the vet. You've got to get him to sign it. And then you've got to post it. And you're thinking, in this digital world, what more can you make it more difficult for us to actually make a claim on the insurance? So it also, as you say, I think it's down as well to sort of like what sort of product do you want and what works for you? And you need to look at not just the convenience of buying, but the convenience of being able to claim and whether you're actually going to claim anything back depending on the excess. And I think we're all responsible for educating. And I'm pleased with what Holiday Extras is doing here, using AI to help customers and travel agents navigate the insurance policies to be able to read those terms and conditions. Right, over to another story now. This is about, we mentioned a boost in sales this year, and that we've already seen nearly 40% of the total of summer 2023 being booked. That is particularly the comments from IntelliTravel UK. Greece continuing to climb in popularity, apparently, with Jet2.com and Jet2 Holidays confirming that they've massively increased the capacity for their program to Greece. Is that on anyone's wish list for this year? Looking at hopping over to the islands?
I'm going to do a shameless plug because the ITT conference is in Greece this year. So absolutely, and we're talking about business travel, but I'm going to take advantage of the leisure, much as I hate that word, and I'm going out early to have a bit of fun out in Greece and see more of that area where we're going in Thessalonica, which I've not been to before.
Excellent, lovely. Now, a story, really a people story here there, Claire. This one designed specifically for you, I think. Millennial men in the UK are helping drive a trend to falling working hours. So typical hours worked pre-pandemic were 36.3 hours. In 2020, it dropped to 32.5, and now it's around 35.3 hours. So it's down about 1 hour in a working week. We've seen, apparently, according to the National Statistics statistics that the average hourly increase for women on a weekly raise, week-wise, was 0.02 hours. So what do you think is happening here in regards to sort of working trends then between men and women and their perception of their role in the workplace?
Well, I have to be quite careful that I'm the only woman on this panel, and I could start the whole thing about women have always worked longer hours anyway, whether they're at work or not. But I won't say that. I actually think it's really interesting. So for me, listen, the whole millennial thing, I think that, you know, we said it at the last podcast, there's this sort of trend in businesses thinking about the next generation and what they want to do and how they want to work, and they want to work their hours and their own time and the flexibility and the hybrid working and everything else. And we are embracing that. But I also do think there's a kickback coming. So I think there's been a little bit too much of we'll give them what they want and not necessarily what's good for our business. So, and I'm being maybe a bit generic here, but actually for me, the interesting thing is that it is a very small increase in the women at work, hours working. And I do think that's because the hybrid working does suit women better because of traditionally, the woman 9 times out of 10 has the caring role at home and needs to fit in around school hours or carers, caring responsibilities. And actually, the way that companies are now letting women work and more hybrid and more flexibly is actually encouraging more women back into the workplace doing longer hours. So I think I'm hoping we'll see an increase in that. We need to get more women back into the workplace. There's no doubt about it. We've spoken about the reduction in number of people coming into all the industries, let alone ours. So it's a really interesting thing. I think the reduction in men's hours, I think that'll stabilize and might even go up again. But I'd like to see the women in the workplace. I'd like to see that continue to increase because I think that's a really positive thing.
Wonderful. Thank you. Right. Moving on to another industry story now, and it's brand related. We are just focusing on one company here. Will had a particular perspective on this. So RyanAir, they finally opened up their distribution channels, a new deal, not just with one OTA, Love Holidays, but with 2 OTAs, Kiwi.com. What's going on?
I think this is really interesting. And I probably think a little bit differently to some other people, because I think OTAs have always thought, well, I have a right to book low-cost airlines. And I'm not sure that was ever the low-cost model. They wanted to sell direct. They wanted to control the flight. They didn't really care about anything else. Obviously, subsequent to that, they've kind of all built their own holiday divisions. EasyJet Holiday obviously is going from strength to strength at the moment. But end of last year, RyanAir had a real attack on the so-called screen scraping sites, so where OTAs are sort of putting a cover over the top of the RyanAir flight to enable RyanAir website to enable people to book flights. RyanAir shut it down. Numbers dropped off for everybody, and we all thought that was the end. RyanAir are calling OTAs pirates and not good for the industry. And now these 2 deals have happened, and I applaud it. I think it's very good. I know people have come out and said different things, but there was one article I read, and they were complaining about, I can't remember the package, but the first deal was Love Holidays. So essentially you can book a RyanAir flight as part of your Love Holidays package. All the data now gets passed to RyanAir. You can now book your seat, add your baggage, etc., on the RyanAir website directly. So that's given RyanAir what they wanted, which was control over the data. But now Love Holidays have also got access to these flights, which make up a large part of their inventory. And there was complaints that I think on average it was £50 for a couple extra versus paying for a flight on its own, a comparable flight on its own on the RyanAir website. I don't have a problem with that. I think actually, you couldn't then go and find the comparable hotel package, for the same money that Love Holidays are probably offering it at. So the package price actually comes out cheaper and better for you. You obviously get your atoll protection over the whole trip. And I think there's great benefit to that. And I think the deal that's been done should be applauded. I don't think this will be the first. Obviously, Kiwi's deal is a little bit different. Kiwi is more the sort of the search engine putting together these interlinked trips, but they've both worked really hard in terms of giving both parties what they want. RyanAir wanted the control, wanted the data, and I think when you're talking about an airline, that's probably fair enough, provided they meet their responsibilities around refunds, safety, consumer responsibility, and the OTAs getting that flight lift that they need to be able to provide well-priced trips to their clients. And I think we'll see more. I think it will develop further, and I personally am very positive about it.
So that comes to the end of our news section, and we're going to move over to our feature topic on business travel.
Travel Market Life.
So our feature topic for February is business travel. I had the opportunity to speak to Clive Ratton, the Chief Executive of the Business Travel Association, to first find out what are the trends that he's seeing in business travel.
But I think what we have seen is business travellers really getting back, doing longer trips away rather than quick round trips. Two reasons for that. One, clearly from a sustainability perspective, and the other is really around cost and time and wellness of the individual. So yeah, there's definitely a trend to longer trips, and I dare I say it, blended with some leisure time. I'm never going to use the word that has been counter that because it just sticks in my gullet. But so yeah, that's really positive. We're back to pretty much close to where we were pre-pandemic in terms of revenues. You know, depending on who you read, anywhere between sort of 85 to 95% of where we were in 2019. But the interesting underlying fact under that right now is that is really driven by yield or cost increase. So passenger numbers are slightly down, but yield and the cost of everything, as we all know in our daily lives, has gone up. So there is a higher cost of everything, resulting in that revenue figure being closer than maybe the passenger figures were to the pre-pandemic levels. But so that's strong. Certainly a trend towards premium travel, bizarrely enough, if you look at it that way. But again, that links to the wellness and what we've learned out of COVID, and business travellers and corporates who very much important about the duty of care and well-being of their employees are really looking at that, and a shift to premium economy, which is a relatively product that's been around quite a long time, but really beginning to gather momentum in the aviation space. So that's quite interesting, and whether that will continue. I think the future of 2024 really reflects that. The issues are that, sadly, we have a lot of global instability, and that always puts a question mark on what could or might not happen. But I think we also have the cost increase is a concern for business travel that's going to impact at some point. I mean, particularly in hotels, and I don't know if you've tried to get a hotel in London, for example, at the moment, you just can't get anything under about £300 a night. We were even trying to book what was called a budget chain, and it was over £300 a night at a peak period. And that, it spells good for a short term, but the longer term, in my opinion, that spells that either there's going to be a bit of crash in pricing, or the market will slow down by passengers people staying in hotels. So there's some interesting trends out there from that perspective. But overall, the trend is back. And I just have to say, sorry, Ryan, the next question is, it's really important that we get the message out that traveling for work is not just about people traveling for meetings. It's going to fix things. It's going to play sport. It's lots of things. So there's, it's not, you can't replace all of that because it's not a meeting as we're chatting over a video call today. Physically it has to happen. So we need to make sure that business travel is both sensibly priced, but also gets a return on the investment.
Now, that was the interview with Clive Ratton, and that will be available in just over a week's time after this podcast on Travel Market Life, the extended interview where we dive deeper into some of the trends and what the Business Travel Association is doing. Now, in the latest Global Business Travel Association poll, nearly 60% of travel buyers expect more travel in the coming year, with 2/3 anticipating increases in business travel spend. There's also been over half have revamped their employee travel policies. Uber also found that rising costs were obviously impacting the higher travel budgets, as well as the need for organizations to consider ESG requirements, with over 4 in 5 intend to bolster support for employees to choose lower carbon business travel options in 2024, and 48% expecting to increase the use of rail travel. And believe it or not, that survey obviously came from Trainline. So over to Will, Claire and James. Business travel, what we've just heard from Clive, some of those stats and insights there that we're seeing in the industry. How are you seeing it within your own businesses, perhaps, and how you're sort of supporting the industry as a whole? Over to James, who does obviously quite a bit of business travel and likes his award ceremonies, etc.
Thank you, Ryan. So I think the first point I wanted to pick up on is something that Clive pointed out, which is the cost to stay in particular places like London now. And midweek travel and accommodation has rocketed. He's completely right. It's gone up vastly. We're actually working with the Liverpool Andaz at the moment, so it's a beautiful 5-star property, and the promotion that we're running is for the weekend, because Monday to Thursday it's extremely, they're basically 90% occupancy. It's a high yield, they get a good ADR. The price that we have on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday is half of that, which is Monday to Thursday. I think when you actually put that in kind of into a bit of a process, and you think about that, how a London hotel could be half the cost at a weekend compared to what it is in the week, because that definitely is illustrating the return of business travellers, particularly in key pockets in London around financial institutions or large banks or investments, where those travellers have returned quite quickly. If I look upon us internally at Travelzoo, our policy has changed in a few ways. First off, we are traveling less for business. We're being a lot more economical about how we travel. And what we've done is we've probably look at business travel, particularly between our offices, with an ROI. So instead of maybe just flying to an office or a train into, say, for instance, me going to the Manchester office, instead of going just there on a more regular basis, is it not better for me to maybe go there bi-weekly, but overnight, and stay and spend more time with the team, get more out of that visit? Where actually pre-pandemic and back in 2019, I was going to Manchester bi-weekly to spend time with the Manchester team, but I'm not doing that now. So I am still traveling, but I'm making our time is probably better vested with the investment that we're putting into that travel. So we'll go for longer, we'll invest time with the people and stay and try to make it more productive, because for the general catch-ups, we are all fortunate that we've all embedded cameras and we can do Teams calls or Google, etc. The other thing that I would probably add from a global perspective that we've done, last year we held our first global event where we brought every single employee together, but instead of bringing it together just for a party, we spread it over a week and we had a pop-up office where we all worked together. So to really maximize the value in bringing us all together, and this year we're doing 2 of those. So there's the purpose of it is to bring all the global meetings that are being undertaken independently, but bringing them all together in 1 week and trying to reduce the costs of multiple travel trips into 1 trip. So for us as a business, we definitely are looking at it very differently, and both from a more sustainable set of eyes as well. So electric cars is being encouraged as our way to travel. So electric taxis, train travel is being encouraged more. We're trying to cut down multiple flights. So as us in the business, we're certainly trying to do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I've been speaking to some of the hospitality and hotels about what's going on with their booking patterns, and they're seeing an increase in like corporate bookings that are 3 or 4 people from the same company who clearly work remotely, coming together for 2 or 3 days to work alongside each other within the hotel. And obviously, with a lot of companies getting rid of their offices, there's that need for more regular mini meetings to be happening. The point about ROI. Now, Amadeus report found that they're trying to maximize that investment by ensuring that travel has multiple objectives to a trip, and looking at how you could have more blended itineraries as well. And as you point out, James, this focus around sort of sustainable travel strategies. Will, anything happening from Trust My Group? How are you looking at it, and what's important when it comes to deciding budgets and business travel?
Yeah, look, it's very similar to what James and Travelzoo are doing. we're not traveling as frequently as we were. I mean, 2019, was a continual, road trip around offices, meeting clients, whatever it may be. Obviously, that's more considered now, and Teams, Google, Zoom, etc., has all helped that for that quick meeting or whatever else. So it's got to be meaningful. ROI is really important. And we're also, trying to be considerate. Clive talked about it as well in terms of wellness, that slightly longer trip. Thinking about when you're sending someone away, how damaging it can be to go sort of medium long haul just for a couple of nights or something. Actually we lose them for the entire week anyway, in terms of, they're a little bit broken with time zones and travel, so it's more, it's a better use of money to actually look to build in. He's not going to, Clive wasn't prepared to say it, but pleasure, just for the good of the staff and everything else. And I think wellness in everything we do, Claire can probably speak better than I can around that, but looking at staff wellness in everything that we do is such a critical part of things. And business travel is that. We're probably spending the same, but on less, because, it is more expensive, yields are higher. So it's an interesting change. It's probably for the better. That's where we are right now. Who knows what's ahead of us.
Now, Claire, revamping policies has been a big thing. How have you been looking at that, and what are companies really having to consider when it comes to, say, Will's point about well-being, ESG, and everything else?
Yeah, absolutely. I think all companies are completely reviewing and looking at what they're doing. Both James and Will have said it very good in terms of maximising time and exactly the reports were saying. The wellness thing is a really interesting thing, because yes, there is the pleasure, that word again, aspect of it. But actually, if we are going to maximise stuff, they are going to potentially be going away for longer, which does have a higher impact on their wellness, actually positively and negatively, because those trips up and down, like James was saying, to Manchester and back, that's really tiring. I think we all found that, didn't we? Came out of lockdown, started traveling again, and we go, oh my God, I've forgotten how tiring this was. I think what I'm seeing is there's much more budgetary control and sign off, but it's more, in some respects, a little bit more flexible, because it's not one size fits all anymore. And that's what I'm seeing. So it's good to have that kind of, right, if you're traveling for more than, if you're flying for more than 4 hours, then we can look at, maybe putting you in premium economy or business class. But actually, we'd expect if you were doing under 4 hours, that you potentially will fly an economy. But actually, if you're doing that just for a day or two, isn't it better to maybe put them up to a premium economy so they have a better, they're not quite so tired when they turn up? So there's all those things to be taken into consideration around that. And also, we used to do it very much at the sort of the level of the responsibilities they had as well, and the stress levels that they were going to be under whilst they were on the business. Again, that would depend on whether it would be, a business class ticket versus a premium economy ticket. So I'm seeing a lot of them questioning everything they've done. Some are saying, well, it still works for us, and that's why we've always done it, and the staff are happy with it. And others are saying, no, we need to really take advantage. And what's so great as we come out of the last few years is there is such more focus on the employer's duty of care to look after their staff's wellness. And that's, it's everywhere now, and that's a good thing. That can only be a good thing. But you need to have the rules in place, and you need to make it very, there needs to be flexibility in those rules, but you need to make it very clear, this is what our company is doing. But again, it's all about the bottom line. And Will spoke earlier about, protecting yourself for the future, and that's part of it, is making sure that your budgetary controls are in place, and we're not all going, well, hey, we're all traveling again, let's all just make hay while the sun shines. We've got to really rein it in and still think strategically about it, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm used to be one of those ones that, used to do a 24-hour turnaround, same day flight in and out. And, you sort of get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, get to get on the plane at 6. You'd be on the plane again at 6 in the evening. You get back at 11 o'clock at night. You jump in the car and you get back at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you'd be wiped for 2 or 3 days. Now I'm actually taking the moment, go, you know what? I'm going to arrive the afternoon the day before. I'm going to get a hotel. I'm going to get an evening hotel the next day, and I'm going to leave the next morning. I'm going to give myself space to breathe, because dear Lord, I'd lose my weekends if I don't. And I think we need to be more appreciative of that, because I mean, if people did it in the 1950s, there's no reason why we can't do that today, is there, eh?
Absolutely, and as technology changes, that even just having that time saying I'll leave the next morning, actually the chances are you're probably going to be online doing a few emails from the airport or whatever anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that you're quite right, and I think that's the right thing to do, Ryan, and I think we are going to see more and more of that. But at the end of the day, it is potentially business trips for longer, making more of the time when they're there, and a control on that spending, but actually looking at the wellness and as I said, making sure that your staff aren't doing those ridiculously long days just to get to and from in one day, which we've all done.
Travel Market Life.
Right, now we're going to look at some industry developments, change in peak periods. So shoulder peak periods are now really becoming popular. Apparently, according to CN Traveller, there's been a dramatic increase in the shoulder season travel, particularly across Europe, France, Spain, UK and Italy, which is set to continue throughout this year with travel specialists seeing 14% more bookings for September than for August 2023, and then 33% increase for bookings in March to May, and a 58% increase for September to November. And even Booking.com travel trends survey found that 47% of respondents are willing to take their children out of school for cheaper off-peak travel. Now, I mean, it's quite difficult, I think, sometimes to justify why kids need to be in school when they're having to work, when they're having to have their homeschooling for a couple of years during the pandemic. And I think this is obviously a knock-on effect, but also substantial price increase and inflationary pressures that have gone on travel bookings. Will, James, you both have kids, and so when you look at sort of like travel and budgets, and you're thinking about your other friends and families that need to look at that, is there a different perspective now on taking kids out of school and or when to travel in other periods throughout the year?
I'll start off with a funny story that brings back my parents into the conversation, which was when I asked them about their cruise, and I said, "Was the cruise busy?" My dad said, "Yeah, the cruise is really busy." He said, "Pretty much, most of the people were our age," but he said there are still kids on board, and I don't know how those kids are on board. So it just shows you that people are taking their children out of school. Why? Because of the cost. Because if someone can take their child on a cruise, which is an all-inclusive cruise, or a cruise in the sun, they're saying, "I'm happy to pay a fine," because the cost is half the price than it is in the summer. And ultimately, we have created a very bad stigma in the UK for how rigid our school seasons are. Some schools now are being a bit more flexible. I know, like, for instance, my daughter's school, it breaks up in summertime generally about a week in advance of most other schools, but they go back generally a bit different. And then other schools in the area are a bit staggered as well over things like February half term. So some schools are moving in that direction, which gives you a little bit of an advantage. But ultimately, you still can't put a price on the saving you're going to get from traveling in September and still get good weather to that of August. So it's going to ultimately create the trend that we're seeing, which is people are willing to take the hit.
Yeah, and I've certainly heard, that they're paying 300 quid for the kid to come out of school for a week, or even 150. I think it can be as low as. It's cheaper than actually going during the school holidays. So huge price differences there. So a trend that we'll keep an eye on. Right, another trend here. I'd be interested to hear from Will. How do you take photos when you're on holiday? Now, Jen said it's over selfies, right? It's done. The next generation are favoring older tech to document their trips. So not with their phones, 16% are now taking a Polaroid on holiday with them, 13% a camcorder, and 11% a 35mm film camera, according to Skyscanner. Can you remember those technologies and the fun we used to have trying to refill those films? How do you take your photos, Will?
Badly. It may be the subject matter. I mean, wow, can you not remember all the endless cables you had to take? It's like, oh, no, I've got the camera cable, I need the camcorder cable, and it doesn't meet. I mean, look, I applaud it on one hand. What I miss and we're very bad of as a family is actually getting photos printed out. And I do think there's some wonderful treasures around that. You know, mine are all on my phone. I have an iPhone. Other brands are available, but you know, I've got endless photos that I flick through or whatever else. But I'll take 10 photos of the same thing in the hope that one of them turns out okay, with all the kids looking at the camera, everyone managing a bit of a smile. And look, I'm not particularly good. It's one thing I probably not regret, but I wish we were better at, and we will try. But it's very much convenience, phone. And they never get printed, sadly.
Free prints. You know, you get a free book every month. I think you get nearly 30 printouts every month for free. You just pay delivery charges. Highly recommend it. My brother's one of those people that every single.
Are they going to sponsor it? Is that a plug?
I wish. Yeah, I could do with that. Yeah, but my brother's one of those people. Every single year, he makes an annual photo book, and you know, it is a wonderful way to remember those times, that's for sure. Claire, are you a selfie lover?
Selfie, no, not me. But I do like taking lots of photos. I mean, listen, I've got a cupboard downstairs full of albums, right, of my travels, of my backpacking days. I absolutely love it, all the fun I had being the age I am. You know, I've got a lot of photos, but like Will was saying, we all have thousands and thousands of photos online in our camera and everything else, and at some point, and I say this to myself, I'm going to go through and get rid of all those photos. I was looking at some of my albums the other day, and I was thinking, who the hell's that? You know, and I think that we have those things as well. And I think, you know, the decluttering and everything else. For me, actually, one of the interesting things I read was around this dark data. And I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but where we have all these millions and millions and millions of additional photos, and there are some amazing stats around it. They are all held. We all think they just go into the cloud and they sit there on our phone and everything else. But there are huge data farms around the world that are churning through electricity and you know, to actually keep all of our photos. So actually, you know, one of the environmentally friendly things we should all do is go through and get rid of, you know, find that one photo out of the 10, Will, that, you know, that works, and get rid of those 9. And we all need to do that. And I'm as guilty as everyone else for not doing it with the best one in the world. I want to do it, but, you know, it's one of those things you never do. But I'm going to, it's going to, one of my New Year's resolutions is to actually sort out my photos, because I've got way too many of them.
Great. Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Claire, Will, James. We are coming up to the finale. It's the quick quiz.
Travel Market Life.
Okay, then, we are at the quick quiz time. It's time to test our industry hobnobs. Where are they this month? Will won in January. It's a best of 5. They're challenged on their industry knowledge. Yes, just they got through last month. So we got 5 questions with a potential bonus question should there be a draw. They have 3 instruments, or instrument each, to bring to the table to make sure that they buzz in when they got the answer. Okay, let's hear Will's buzzer. He got a bell. And Claire. Woo, she's ready, that's for sure. And James. He's moved in with a tambourine this week.
Raided the kids' playbooks, eh?
Yeah. Mixing it up, Will.
Nice, I like
it. Right, okay, are we ready? Let's go, shall we? First question is a geography question. Which country is made up of more than 7,000 islands? James.
Is it Canada?
No. Will.
Indonesia.
No, the Philippines.
Oh.
Second question, an attraction question. How many floors are in the Empire State Building?
Ooh.
You have to take a guess. Yeah. Okay, Will, Claire, and James in that order.
52.
52, Claire?
I was going to say 70.
70, James.
I was going to say 72.
Oh, well done, James. You won. It's 102. So
102?
1 point to James.
I've been up there so many
so
times.
close.
I don't remember that. 102. Blimey.
There you go. A destination question. What currency is used in Brazil? Will.
Brazilian Reais, BRS.
Real, yes, that's right. Well done.
It's pronounced Reais, apparently, my Brazilian friend tells me.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Over to an airline question now. According to industry averages, about what percentage of flights are delayed a day? What percentage of flights are delayed per day? Oh, Will, you're going straight in there with all the guesses, aren't you? Come on, then.
Yeah, the word is guesses. 8%.
Okay, James came in there.
I'm going to say 5%.
I think it's less.
What's your guess then, Claire?
I think it's like 2.5%.
Well, Will's closer. Definitely not close enough, because believe it or not, it's around 20%. And actually, approximately 1 to 2% are cancelled a day.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but that's global industry averages, right? So that could be anywhere in the world. Okay, on to the fifth question. We got Will, who's winning at 2 points to 1 of James so far. This is a history question. In what year was the first hot air balloon launched? Yes, Claire.
1730.
Okay. Will?
1842.
All right, then. And, well, James wants to guess then.
Come on, Mr. Tambourine Man.
I'm going to go for 1840.
1840, 2 years before Will. Well, Claire, you just about got that. You were 53 years out. It was 1783 that it first. Yes, the passengers were a sheep, a duck, and a rooster.
Wow.
Yeah,
there's a joke somewhere there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that was the fifth and final question. So with 2 points, Will wins again. Well done. Guys, congratulations. Thank you ever so much. And thank you to the audience for joining us for the Travel Monthly Review Show for February. Woohoo!
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Right. Okay. So don't forget, you can check out all our monthly podcasts on any of your podcast channels. We'll be coming back to you in March. See you very soon.
For more, go to Travel Market Life. The music sensation by Zach Nelson is reproduced under license from Storyblocks. Travel Market Life is a Haynes Marcoms digital marketing agency production, serving the travel and technology industries.